Whether you're interested in treasure hunt design or being a treasure hunter or related kinds of experiences that you're trying to create, I find a lot of value in studying the literary genre of treasure hunt, the cinematic genre of the treasure hunt. And so what better, more modern, I guess it's not that modern anymore, but what better example than National Treasure, one of my all-time favorite movies. So what I'd like to do in this video is I'm going to actually take you through step by step the clues and the treasure hunt design that we see in National Treasure. I'm not talking about the film. I'm going to be skipping a lot of the drama and what makes it an interesting, engaging kind of film. And I'm going to take you through what makes it an interesting and engaging kind of treasure hunt. And I would say that this is valuable for a couple of reasons. One, it's valuable because sometimes it's just fun and interesting to look at these types of things. But two, it's also valuable because if you're a treasure hunt designer or you're a treasure hunter, people who design treasure hunts, especially in the contemporary world, they are informed and shaped by the treasure hunts before them, the ones that they grew up with, the ones that they learned. Even if they're unintentionally incorporating some of these principles, they are absolutely being shaped and informed by them. And so let's go ahead and dive in, and I'm going to walk you through National Treasure. I think I'm going to do about 9 clues. And for those of you purists, my apologies in advance. I may miss little pieces of the storyline and the like. That's not the point, but I'm going to use this to illustrate a few things that we can learn about treasure hunt design. The first one is there is this, and I'll be reading a little bit. If you see me looking down the screen, I have some notes and then I'm going to comment upon it. So it starts with the secret lies with Charlotte. There's this kind of clue or riddle, and it eventually leads them to, it's a family, legend from Ben, the main character, his ancestor, Charles Carroll. And it introduces them to the theme of kind of like your ancestors passing on messages and listening to those from the past and learning from those of the past. And so eventually they do research. They have to do all sorts of archaeological research and historical research to consider what might this mean when it says the secret lies with Charlotte. And eventually they stumble upon, they discover through their research that it could be actually a ship named Charlotte. And so they travel and they get to this ship that's been buried and it's under the ice and the snow, and they work their way in and discover that there is indeed a secret. At first, they have to search. Once you have the clue and you get there, there's usually some boots on the ground work you have to do. You still have to look around for it. It's not as if in most treasure hunts, there's a treasure that there's a clue, you get to the destination and ta-da, it just appears and it's kind of blinking and yelling for your attention. There's still some last minute work, and that's what happens in this case. They look around, there's a lot of gunpowder and other things like that, but it was noticing the nuance that there's a skeleton that seems to be clinging to a particular barrel, so maybe there's something special in that barrel. And they look into it and they find a little box and they find what is a meerschaum pipe, and it's a carved pipe, and yet the pipe itself doesn't explain a whole lot. There's you can kind of see a little bit on it, but the pipe is actually a literal key to another clue. And so what they end up having to do is by using some heat, and I think he actually used blood, and he rolls out on the pipe on this paper. There's an actual message. There's a riddle that's provided. And so that riddle then leads them to the next step. Now, the one thing I want to note here is you start with the secret lies with Charlotte. There's a simple kind of riddle. It leads to a physical item. That physical item is then used to create another kind of riddle or secret message. And this secret message then is leading to what eventually becomes the Silence Dogwood letters. So Ben Franklin's letters, and hidden within them is what's called an Ottendorf cipher. So they have to, it's what's so fascinating about this clue is this is content that was readily available to the entire world. So the clue, a part of this journey, and the clue to the treasure is hidden in plain sight for a very long time. Anyone could have seen it, but they didn't know that there were clues hidden there. And so the Ottendorf cipher was used, numbers pointing to words in a known document set. And then from there, it gives a clue that leads to a belief that they have to look on the backside of the Declaration of Independence. And if you watch the movie, that makes it a really fascinating thing because they end up having to steal the Declaration of Independence to keep the bad guys from getting it and all that good stuff. But then they get the map, and once more, they have the object, the next clue in the clue link object. But there's more that has to happen. So there's lemon juice that they put on with a little bit of heat added, even the heat of their breath, and it becomes visible on the back that there's a little bit of a message. But even there, not the full message is revealed. That clue is not useless just to be discarded. There's even more. So this leads them next to there's a clue referencing pass and stow, and they recognize that as being tied to the Liberty Bell. It leads them there, and they find also a connection, a reminder about daylight savings time, and so time today is not the same as it was back then, and at least the hours of the day are different. And they actually, hidden right on a $100 bill is a sort of a shadow that's pointing to a certain place beneath the Liberty Bell where the next clue resides. And so they get their way over there, and they find that there's a loose brick, or there's a little, I think, a Mason symbol or some kind of symbol on the brick that gives a clue that that's the right one. They kind of work it out, and behind it is a pair of glasses, spectacles with colored lenses. And now they use the multicolored lenses to reveal some more detail on the Declaration of Independence on the back. So there's a declaration map that's revealed. So notice that just because a clue is used once, there might be some layering. And this is really common in modern treasure hunt design, is that you use an object, it accomplishes a purpose, but it's not obsolete. It's going to be used again a little bit later, but in a different way. Or you get a clue, and that clue maybe has a riddle, but there's even more to using that object that's a little bit later, and maybe there's another riddle or a map or something else that's revealed. So notice that we've had physical objects, we've had ciphers, we've had riddles. There's a nice combination of clue types. Check out my other video on the predominant clue types, and you'll see that in this particular film, in this design of a treasure hunt, they're using a lot of different clue types. And it is obviously a traditional chain clue system. No one was going to just kind of skip the clues and end up at the final destination without kind of following the storyline. And I would say that if you will go through these, just kind of going back, looking at my notes again, there's a kind of symbolic treasure that's often done with treasure hunt design to make it more engaging and interesting. So The Secret Lies with Charlotte, that whole piece, it's a legacy. It's the message and the secret message of valuing our ancestors and those who came before us and the wisdom they offer and carrying their stories into the future. The pipe knowledge that's passed down, but the pipe is also an object. There's a theme of a sort of a link to the past or a key. The silenced dogwood letters could show there might be a treasure of hidden wisdom in plain sight. The Declaration of Independence, that the founding document it's both a sort of sacred, civilly sacred object, and it even has more depth and more of a treasure than you might expect. So this great American treasure actually points to a treasure, so you kind of get the layered meaning there. And then also the next one about Independence Hall and trying to find the right brick. Sometimes you can only see the truth at the right moment, at the right time of day. So you get that there are these different sort of symbolic treasures that are passed along. This is true for most forms of treasure hunt design in literature and in film. Is it's adding these layers of interest and intrigue. It's teaching people lessons. It's cultivating a kind of virtue and character and passing on wisdom, even if you never get to the total end. And then we have the discovery of the glasses or tools of interpretation. Everything's not visible to the naked eye. That sometimes there's more than meets the eye. And then eventually they get a clue here at the wall, it leads them to Trinity Church in New York. And there's this, you could maybe argue that the sacred and the secret are intertwined. Church is a spiritual place, a place of great treasure. And there's actual treasure hidden beneath it as well. And this idea of having to go underground is a common theme. There's buried treasure and treasures that are hidden in caves and things like that. Sometimes it's done literally, sometimes symbolically. And so then they get there, they break through, and there's a subterranean passage with a lantern. They have to work their way all the way down. And then they get down to the bottom, and lo and behold, they walk into the vault, which is the treasure room. Nope, not quite. So they get to this room, and it looks as if it's been maybe pillaged and others had arrived and taken all the treasure away. But no, now we go full circle. There's a little indentation that's the shape of the pipe, and the two pieces of the pipe go in, and it's used to open a passage that goes into the treasure room, and this massive treasure is visible. So there we have a series of 9 different clues that are leading along, and they all kind of have symbolic treasures that they offer. There are many different clue types. The old clues and clue objects sometimes take on additional purposes. And this is a beautiful example of, obviously, a great film, but also a beautiful example of a treasure hunt design. It has lots of layered meaning. It repurposes the same clues with different kinds of meanings at different times. It has a nice clue chain. Now, here's something for those of you who are watching this, and maybe you're part of one of the current treasure hunts. Not all treasure hunts are designed as clue chain treasure hunts, where one clue leads to the next clue, leads to the next clue in physical space. Sometimes there's a single clue object that has all of the clues leading up to the final treasure. But I will say this, usually when you're dealing with a single object clue in these modern designs, like maybe the John Collins Black, There's Treasure Inside treasure hunt, or some of the others that are around today, usually there is a kind of clue chain system that still exists. In other words, usually if it's all encapsulated in a poem or a book, it's not just sort of one clue and another clue and another clue, and just 5 different clues, and they're kind of independent, but you look at them together and there it is. Usually there's some kind of story that's being told, and the clues are layering upon one another, and each layer is getting you a little closer to the final destination. Not in a way where you get halfway through and now you know where the treasure hunt is. No, oftentimes you have to follow it all the way to the end before it all kind of finally makes sense. It all kind of comes together. You can't skip steps, and it will make as much sense to you most of the time with well-designed treasure hunts. So there you go. That's my little breakdown of National Treasure. I hope you found it interesting, whether you're a treasure hunt designer or one of those treasure hunt searchers. I'm going to do this with a series of different films. I want to, in the future, do others like National Treasure 2, and we'll do also probably The Game, which is an alternate reality game, not a treasure hunt, but there's some connections between the two. Until then, I wish you the best.